Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining me here today. If you want to follow along, we will be back in the 18th chapter of the book of Genesis, beginning in verse number 27. Abraham answered and said, Behold, I have undertaken to speak to the Lord, I who am but dust and ashes. Suppose 5 of the 55 righteous are lacking. Will you destroy the whole city for lack of 5? And he said, I will not destroy it if I find 45 there. Uh, this passage honestly probably makes most of us a little uncomfortable as we see Abraham bartering with the Lord is the only way I really know how to describe it. Negotiating with God, but I think it shows us. Even though we may be uncomfortable with that, and I am, to be honest, I'm proud of Abraham for negotiating and trying to rescue the folks of Sodom and Gomorrah. But quite honestly, I'm not sure I've got the courage to try that. But Abraham does. And I think that teaches us something about how we become a intercessor, how we pray on behalf of others, how we become a prayer warrior, and that is that we maintain access. We lay into the idea of prayer. Abraham was persistent. Abraham was not backing down off of his prayer. It would seem here that as he was praying and talking with God, he kind of gets to thinking, well, man, them people are pretty mean. I don't know if there'll be, I don't know if there'll be 50 righteous people there or not. Maybe I can lower the number a little bit. And I think he doesn't want to just say, will you rescue Lot, because that might seem selfish. And so he's just seems like he's just trying to get the number down low enough that Lot and his family could fit in the number. And so he prays that God will save the city. And he just continues to pray, and he continues to ask God for more until God says no. But notice, in all of this, Abraham is praying with humility. He says, I am but dust and ashes. Lord, I know my role. I know my place. And he calls him here Lord. You'll notice it's capital L. We've talked about this before, capital L, and then the other letters are lowercase. And so that means that the Hebrew word there would be Adonai. And this is not the personal name for Lord, but it is the formal title. This is like saying sir, if you will. This is a formal title. He's appealing to God as the great, sovereign, all-powerful ruler of everything. And so he approaches God in humility, but yet he approaches God with persistence. And he prays, and he's going to continue to pray until God says enough. And I've spoke before, some of you have heard it, maybe from others as well, that God answers prayer in 3 ways. We tend to think God only answers prayer when he says yes. But God does, and God does sometimes say yes, and certainly that's an answer. That's generally the answer we're looking for. Sometimes God gives us the wait a while. He doesn't say yes, he doesn't say no, but he tells us you need to wait. And then sometimes he says no. And when he says no, then it's time to stop. And so Abraham is going to continue to pray. He is continuing to pray on behalf of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. And I just want to stress to you today that balance of praying as as he calls it, dust and ashes, the humility that he has, and yet he is grabbing hold of the horns of the altar, as the old saying is. He's grabbing hold. He's grabbing hold of God, and he's praying. I've heard the phrase used before. You probably have too, praying through. And Abraham is just going to continue to pray, but he always keeps in mind who he is and who God is. And that's a great lesson for us today in our own prayer life. We can pray boldly. We're told to pray boldly. We're told to enter into his presence, to pray boldly. But we still, even though we enter into his presence boldly, we don't enter into his presence arrogantly. Most of you, whether you have children or grandchildren or from when you were a child yourself, you generally could walk in most cases with most parents, maybe not always, but you could go into your parents' presence boldly. You could walk in and say, "Mama, can I have a cookie?" And you didn't have to hide or be ashamed or whatever else. But you wouldn't dare walk in and say, "Mama, I said give me a cookie." And sometimes we failed at this, but when we said, "Mama, can I have a cookie?" and she said, "No, I'm fixing supper, it'll be ready in a minute," you didn't throw yourself in the floor and throw a temper tantrum. You approached her boldly, but you approached her humbly, knowing her place and yours. And that's what we learned here from Abraham as he negotiates on behalf of the people of Sodom and Gomorrah. He's approaching God boldly, but he's also approaching him humbly. You think about that as you pray. You have a good day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.